Welcome to the Reporting Outputs GPX tutorial. In this recording, we will consider the optional reporting outputs that are available in GPX. The Output Settings panel can be found on the Runs view and allows you to select which data is outputted to Excel and the format of the output. The settings that I would describe are available for all run types, although optimization runs have more limited options. The first option, Cache Data for Analysis, allows you to select how much data from the simulation are saved for display within the GPX interface. All will save all data. Minimal will save the plasma concentration versus time curves, along with some series that capture the absorption and statistics, and none will not save any results for view in the interface. The differences can be seen when the simulation is complete and the interface switches to analysis view. I have created 3 runs using the same simulation each time, but varying the cache data for analysis option. So you can see I have one for none, one for all, and one for minimal. Navigating to the analysis view, you can see that when the cache option of none is used, all of the key views are empty. If we then switch to all of the views are populated as you would expect. And the minimal option delivers the CP time curve, absorption dissolution, and regional absorption plots as expected. The systemic distribution plot is empty, and the elimination plot has a single line, which represents the mass eliminated from the gut epithelial. If we now switch to summary view, you can see that all 3 options provide a fully populated summary view. Selecting minimal or none can therefore conserve memory when doing runs with a large number of simulations. For example, running a large number of different compounds in a discovery DMPK type application, or doing a large population simulation, while still allowing you to output any results that you choose to Excel, but also populating the summary view and providing you with statistics from your run. Moving back to look at the other options. The Enable Output toggle determines whether an Excel file is created. The settings below are saved with your project, and so this toggle allows you to turn off the Excel output without losing all of your selections. The output format determines the structure of the Excel file created. Multiple formats can be selected and outputted with one run. For this example, we will select just the standard output format, as the differences are only really apparent when profiles are selected. The results types allows you to choose whether you want to output the simulation inputs, the profiles, or the summary. Again, multiple selections can be made, and I'm going to select the inputs and the summary for this example. The profile selection allows you to output every profile that GPX can generate, or select the profiles that you require for the individual simulation, but we'll talk more about that later. Finally, the file arrangement determines whether each simulation in the run will be outputted into an individual Excel, or whether all simulations will be put into one Excel. We're going to pick composite for this example, and so only a single Excel file will be generated. I'm just going to select a couple more simulations, and then we will run this run. Once the interface switches to your key view, you know that your results file is ready for viewing. The Excel files are stored in the same folder as your GPX project. GPX creates a folder that's called the same as your run name, and within that you will find your results files. The naming format for composite files are the run name, the type of output, and then the date and timestamp, which means that you can generate multiple runs within the same folder without overwriting any of your results. If we open that Excel file, we can have a look at what is contained within it. On the summary worksheet, you can see the summary PK parameters along with the fraction absorbed in the different GI regions. Each simulation then has an input Excel worksheet, and these are all laid out the same, so we'll just look at one for today. They are broadly arranged as per the interface with sections for compound properties, dose schedules, and the physiology type inputs. Properties that are selected as part of the simulation settings are separated into their own section, for example, the ASF model used. Physio-molecular properties are also in their own section, along with the GI physio-molecular properties. And the results that you output will depend on the simulation settings that you've used. For example, in this run, I've used a compartmental model. If I'd selected a PBPK model, then this section would be replaced with a section called PBPK, and in addition, a PBPK physio-molecular properties section would be appended to the bottom. Moving back to GPX, if we select the profiles, along with selected profiles, you start to see the series selector that you are familiar with in Deep View or when you're picking parameters for optimization. There again, you can search for the curves that you wish to select, or you can simply clear the search from the box, hit return, and then you'll get all of the curves available for you to scroll through and select. So I've selected 3 curves which are visible in this table to the right. I've selected the concentration in plasma, the mass renal clearance, and the mass present in the dissolved state in the duodenum. But you can see that I've only selected for one of my simulations that I have in my run. We'll just deselect propranolol for now and concentrate on atenolol and brick dust. So you do need to make these selections of the curves for each individual simulation. So if we switch to brick dust again, we can expand it, find the mass present in the dissolved state in the duodenum, and then search as we did before for the plasma and for the renal clearance. Now we are going to look at all the different output formats for this example, so we can start to see the difference. And we're going to switch the file arrangement to individual and run. Again, once the interface is switched, you can see, you know that your simulation outputs will be available for viewing. So again, we'll open all the 4 filed formats for just one of the simulations, and you can see that this time the naming is done differently. So instead of the run name, we've now got the simulation name followed by the output type, followed by the date and timestamp. So starting with the Kiwi output, you can see that because we only selected profiles, we just have one Excel sheet within our file. The headers are compatible with the Kiwi software, and the profiles are stacked one on top of the other. Moving on to the standard output, this has a different file arrangement to the Kiwi that we've just looked at. Here we have 3 different Excel worksheets, one for the mass in the GI, one for the mass in systemic, and one for the concentration in systemic. So the 3 curves that we've selected are split between the 3. We have the duodenum in the GI mass, we have the mass renal clearance under the systemic mass, and then we have the concentration in the plasma in the systemic concentration worksheet. The Monolix format again has headers that are compatible with the Monolix software. And again, the profiles are stacked. So we move through the dissolved in the duodenum, then through the renal clearance onto the concentration plasma. And finally, the Win non-lin. The format is the same as the standard output with the exception of this additional sheet where you can see the CP time profile presented in a format that is usable by Win non-lin. So the final option is to output all of the profiles. So for this, I'm just going to choose the Monolix and the WinNonLin output format and keep the file arrangement as individual and start the run. This will take a bit longer because obviously there's an awful lot of profiles available in GPX, and all of those need to be written to both the Excel files that we have selected to output. While it's doing that, I'll just also bring to your attention that even if your output settings are set to none, some run types do output an Excel file, namely the optimization, the PSA, the population simulation, and the VBE. And again, you will find these output files within a folder that's called for your run name. Just a quick note though, they do not have the timestamp on them, and so you will need to make sure you edit the name if you want to do multiple runs of the same run name. But now our run has completed, so again we can go back into our folder and we can see that we now have the Atenolol and the Brickdust, WinNonLin and Monolix that we have just requested to run. So if I again just open the Atenolol ones, because the Brickdust will be arranged comparably, you can see that for the WinNonLin, we have the same CP_time format that's compatible with WinNonLin, but we now have additional worksheets covering the overall mass, where you can see some of the curves that make up the absorption dissolution. So you've got the total dissolved, the total absorbed, and the total in the portal vein. We have the systemic mass that we saw before, but this time with more curves. So the mass in the systemic circulation, along with the mass renal clearance, etc., etc. We have the same GI mass sheet that we saw before, but again with many more curves. So you have all of your dissolved and undissolved in all your GI sections and others in here. The GI concentration is also now outputted, so the concentration dissolved in the stomach, and again you have a number of additional curves, each with its own time column. And finally you have the concentration in the systemic. So this is namely the concentration in the blood, the plasma, the unbound concentration is available, your Cmax within the systemic circulation, etc., etc. Moving on to the Monolix, again, as before, we've only got one worksheet, and again, the profiles are stacked one on top of the other. So you can see that as you spin through them, we have many curves, all outputted one after the other. So this worksheet is now running at 8,093 rows. The number of rows will depend on your simulation settings, because some simulations lead to more curves being outputted than others, and also the number of time points that the integrator determines is best to capture the simulation that you've requested it to run. So I hope that that covers the main point in the reporting output capabilities for GPX. For more information, please visit our website or email us at the email addresses that you can see on the screen. Thank you very much.